President Trump tweeted his support to anti-government protesters in Iran. Demonstrators packed the streets of Tehran on Saturday. They denounced Iran for shooting down a Ukrainian airline a few days ago. President Trump tweeted to the people of Iran in Farsi. Here's what it says in English now. To the brave, long-suffering people of Iran, I've stood with you since the beginning of my presidency, and my administration will continue to stand with you. We are following your protests closely and are inspired by your courage.
The Council must take action to confront these and other dangers facing the world. That also includes the behavior of the Iranian regime, which has killed hundreds and hundreds of people in a very short period of time. They're killing protesters. They turned down their internet system. People aren't hearing what's going on. I would like to see the media get involved in that and go in and see what's happening, because it's not a good situation. It's a horrible situation. It's something that that is going to be a big scandal throughout the world very soon. They're killing a lot of people, and they're arresting thousands of their own citizens in a brutal crackdown in recent weeks because they're protesting. And I think the media should get involved in that. I don't know that they will, because they have their own reasons, but the media should absolutely get involved in that. America will always stand with the Iranian people in their righteous struggle for freedom. They're not being treated properly. All of that money is being wasted on weapons and on other things, and they're not treating their people properly. And their people all over the country, they're rioting and they're protesting and they're very unhappy.
On behalf of the General Assembly, I have the honor to welcome to the United Nations His Excellency Donald Trump, President of the United States of America, and to invite him to address the Assembly.
It is far past time for the nations of the world to confront another reckless regime, one that speaks openly of mass murder, vowing death to America, destruction to Israel, and ruin for many leaders and nations in this room. The Iranian government masks a corrupt dictatorship behind the false guise of a democracy. It has turned a wealthy country with a rich history and culture into an economically depleted rogue state whose chief exports are violence, bloodshed, and chaos. The longest suffering victims of Iran's leaders are, in fact, its own people. Rather than use its resources to improve Iranian lives, its oil profits go to fund Hezbollah and other terrorists that kill innocent Muslims and attack their peaceful Arab and Israeli neighbors. This wealth, which rightly belongs to Iran's people, also goes to shore up Bashar al-Assad's dictatorship, fuel Yemen's civil war, and undermine peace throughout the entire Middle East. We cannot let a murderous regime continue these destabilizing activities while building dangerous missiles, and we cannot abide by an agreement if it provides cover for the eventual construction of a nuclear program. The Iran deal was one of the worst and most one-sided transactions the United States has ever entered into. Frankly, that deal is an embarrassment to the United States, and I don't think you've heard the last of it, believe me. It is time for the entire world to join us in demanding that Iran's government end its pursuit of death and destruction. It is time for the regime to free all Americans and citizens of other nations that they have unjustly detained. And above all, Iran's government must stop supporting terrorists, begin serving its own people, and respect the sovereign rights of its neighbors. The entire world understands that the good people of Iran want change, and other than the vast military power of the United States, that Iran's people are what their leaders fear the most. This is what causes the regime to restrict internet access, tear down satellite dishes, shoot unarmed student protesters, and imprison political reformers. Oppressive regimes cannot endure forever, and the day will come when the people will face a choice. Will they continue down the path of poverty, bloodshed, and terror, or will the Iranian people return to the nation's proud roots as a center of civilization, culture, and wealth, where their people can be happy and prosperous once again? The Iranian regime's support for terror is in stark contrast to the recent commitments of many of its neighbors to fight terrorism and halt its financing. In Saudi Arabia early last year, I was greatly honored to address the leaders of more than 50 Arab and Muslim nations. We agreed that all responsible nations must work together to confront terrorists and the Islamic extremism that inspires them. We will stop radical Islamic terrorism because we cannot allow it to tear up our nation and indeed to tear up the entire world. We must deny the terrorists safe haven, transit, funding, and any form of support for their vile and sinister ideology. We must drive them out of our nations. It is time to expose and hold responsible those countries who support and finance terror groups like Al-Qaeda, Hezbollah, the Taliban, and others that slaughter innocent people. The United States and our allies are working together throughout the Middle East to crush the loser terrorists and stop the reemergence of safe havens they use to launch attacks on all of our people. Last month, I announced a new strategy for victory in the fight against this evil in Afghanistan. From now on, our security interests will dictate the length and scope of military operations, not arbitrary benchmarks and timetables set up by politicians. I have also totally changed the rules of engagement in our fight against the Taliban and other terrorist groups. In Syria and Iraq, we have made big gains toward lasting defeat of ISIS. In fact, our country has achieved more against ISIS in the last 8 months than it has in many, many years combined. We seek the de-escalation of the Syrian conflict and a political solution that honors the will of the Syrian people. The actions of the criminal regime of Bashar al-Assad, including the use of chemical weapons against his own citizens, even innocent children, shock the conscience of every decent person. No society can be safe if banned chemical weapons are allowed to spread. So let this be our mission, and let this be our message to the world. We will fight together, sacrifice together, and stand together for peace, for freedom, for justice, for family, for humanity, and for the Almighty God who made us all. Thank you. God bless you. God bless the nations of the world, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you very much.
Mr. Speaker, the President of the United States.
Thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Vice President, members of Congress, the First Lady of the United States. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, Mr. Vice President, members of Congress, the First Lady of the United States,
Welcome.
That is why tonight I am asking Congress to pass legislation to help ensure American foreign assistance dollars always serve American interests and only go to friends of America, not enemies of America. As we strengthen friendships all around the world, we are also restoring clarity about our adversaries. When the people of Iran rose up against the crimes of their corrupt dictatorship, I did not stay silent. America stands with the people of Iran in their courageous struggle for freedom. I am asking Congress to address the fundamental flaws in the terrible Iran nuclear deal. My administration has also imposed tough sanctions on the communist and socialist dictatorships in Cuba and Venezuela. The Council must take action to confront these and other dangers facing the world. That also includes the behavior of the Iranian regime, which has killed hundreds and hundreds of people in a very short period of time. They're killing protesters. They turn down their internet system. People aren't hearing what's going on. I would like to see the media get involved in that and go in and see what's happening, because it's not a good situation. It's a horrible situation. It's something that that is going to be a big scandal throughout the world very soon. They're killing a lot of people, and they're arresting thousands of their own citizens in a brutal crackdown in recent weeks because they're protesting. And I think the media should get involved in that. I don't know that they will, because they have their own reasons, but the media should absolutely get involved in that. America will always stand with the Iranian people in their righteous struggle for freedom. They're not being treated properly. All of that money is being wasted on weapons and on other things, and they're not treating their people properly. And their people all over the country, they're rioting and they're protesting and they're very unhappy.
Good afternoon. In recent days, we have watched widespread protests erupt in many Iranian cities. Years of mismanagement, corruption, and foreign adventurism have eroded the Iranian people's trust in their leaders. The Iranian regime spends its people's wealth on spreading militancy and terror abroad rather than ensuring prosperity at home. Prices for everyday staples and fuel are rising, while the Revolutionary Guards spend the nation's wealth on foreign militant groups and enrich themselves in the process. The Iranian people are angry at the rising tide of corruption in their daily lives. The people are tired of paying the price for their violent and corrupt rulers. As a result, we are now seeing an organic, popular uprising organized by brave Iranian citizens on the largest scale since 2009. But the international community cannot sit silent as it did then. The United States supports the Iranian people, and we call on the regime to respect its citizens' basic right to peacefully express their desire for change. America longs for the day when Iranians will take their rightful place alongside the free people of the world. As the President said in October, we stand in total solidarity with the Iranian regime's longest suffering victims, its own people. The citizens of Iran have paid a heavy price for the violence and extremism of their leaders, and the Iranian people long to reclaim their country's proud history, its culture, its civilization, and its cooperation with its neighbors.
And of course, now President Trump is tweeting support for the protesters in Farsi as well as English. So what's the world reaction to President Trump's direct message to the people of Iran? And more importantly, how will the leaders of Iran react to this direct messaging?
President Trump says people in Iran are hungry for food and freedom. He supports protesters who for 6 days have criticized Iran's government. White House correspondent Mark Irons reports. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, Jason. The president returns from his Christmas break in Florida, and he's jumping right into international affairs. The White House says Iranians deserve the right to express themselves peacefully. Still, hundreds of protesters have been arrested, and some could even face the death penalty. 21 deaths reported in the public clashes between protesters and Iranian security forces. It started almost a week ago as food prices in Iran jumped as much as 40%. Now President Trump is raising his voice, tweeting, "The people of Iran are finally acting against the brutal and corrupt Iranian regime. All of the money that President Obama so foolishly gave them went into terrorism and into their pockets. The people have little food, big inflation, and no human rights. The U.S. is watching." The White House press secretary says the Iranian people deserve to be heard.
The Iranian people are angry at the rising tide of corruption in their daily lives. The people are tired of paying the price for their violent and corrupt rulers.
Demonstrations began last Thursday and spread across the country. Iran's 2015 nuclear deal that lifted international sanctions was supposed to help Iran's economy, but the people reportedly aren't seeing the results. Some of the protesters have now been threatened with the death penalty.
And so what you see today is a smoldering ash catching fire.
Majid Sajpour works in Washington, D.C., advocating for the rights of the Iranian people.
So the international community, all it needs to do is stand by its moral principles. What's right is standing for human rights, for women's rights, for religious rights. Those fundamental beliefs is at the core of this country.
Iranian protesters taking to the streets after Iran admitted it mistakenly shot down the Ukrainian passenger jet, killing all 176 people on board.
President Donald Trump tweeting support for those demonstrators Saturday.
Trump tweeting in both English and Farsi, quote, "To the brave, long-suffering people of Iran, I've stood with you since the beginning of my presidency, and my administration will continue to stand with you. We're following your protests closely and are inspired by your courage."
In a separate tweet, President Trump writing, "The government of Iran must allow human rights groups to monitor and report facts from the ground on the ongoing protests by the Iranian people. There cannot be another massacre of peaceful protesters nor an internet shutdown. The world is watching."
President Trump tweeted his support to anti-government protesters in Iran. Demonstrators packed the streets of Tehran on Saturday. They denounced Iran for shooting down a Ukrainian airline a few days ago. President Trump tweeted to the people of Iran in Farsi. Here's what it says in English now. "To the brave, long-suffering people of Iran, I've stood with you since the beginning of my presidency, and my administration will continue to stand with you. We are following your protests closely and are inspired by your courage."
That famous golden escalator back in 2015, Donald Trump has been the main character in American politics.
I am officially running for President of the United States, and we are going to make our country great again. Build that wall, build that wall, build that wall. Crooked Hillary, crazy Bernie, sleepy Joe Biden, Obama.
It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Because you'd be in jail.
Secretary Clinton.
Almost overnight, the New York businessman and former reality TV star transformed politics forever, launching a historic movement and pulling off the biggest electoral upset of our lifetimes.
Donald Trump will be the 45th president of the United States.
From this day forward, it's going to be only America first. I told you, CNN is fake news. Don't talk to me. And then they go after us for a Russian hoax. It's a witch hunt hoax. No collusion, no obstruction.
The outbreak of a mystery virus in China.
It will go away, just stay calm.
After years of record economic prosperity and job growth, the COVID-19 pandemic and national unrest sparked by Black Lives Matter riots doomed Trump's re-election effort.
Joe Biden has been elected the 46th President of the United States.
It was one of the deadliest days for the U.S. military of the entire 20-year war.
The nation is mourning the loss of those 13 service members.
You are a disgrace to this nation. You have no business having ultimate command over our military, and I regret not saying that to your face when I had the opportunity.
Joe Biden is so far underwater right now. A majority of Americans disapprove of his job performance.
Shortly after launching his third bid for the White House, the FBI raid on Trump's Mar-a-Lago home and subsequent indictments only increased his support among the GOP base.
Count 1, guilty. Count 2, guilty. Count 3, guilty.
This was a disgrace. The real verdict is going to be November 5th by the people.
Donald Trump is now the Republican nominee for president for the third straight election.
Prices rose 8.2% year over year, higher than analysts expected.
Inflation remains stubbornly, persistently high.
It is the biggest one-year increase since 1982, with no sign of a let-up anytime soon.
And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either.
I had God on my side. I felt that.
Breaking news as President Joe Biden has just announced that he is dropping out of the 2024 presidential race.
Nobody could watch the events of the last few weeks and believe that the Democratic Party is democratic.
An investigation underway after the second assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump.
We are not going back.
I think she's going to be able to read from the teleprompter for the next 100 days.
Kamala, you're fired. Get out of here. You're fired.
این طرفداران مصدق و دموکراسی و آزادی و حقوق بشر و نمیدونم سوسیالیسم و پیشرو گروه‌های پیشرو مترقی متعهد روشنفکران کنفدراسیون حزب توده هر وقت به یاد اینها میافتم خون در رگ من به جوش میاد که چه کردند با این ملت. ایرانی که میتوانست یکی از پیشرفته ترین کشورهای عالم بشود در ظرف یک نسل با آن چنین کردن که امروز میبینید چگونه میشود بخشید این مصدقی ها رو. لعنت بر مصدق و مصدقی، لعنت بر کمونیسم، لعنت بر مجاهد خلق، لعنت بر چریک فدایی خلق و لعنت بر هر کسی که حتی به اسم مشروطه خواه با دروغ و دغل و پای گذاشتن بر روی وجدان و اخلاق رفته است با این کمونیست ها می نشیند در پاریس و در نمیدونم لندن و در لس آنجلس اینها رو دوباره زنده می کند و به جان مردم ایران می اندازد. لعنت بر همه اینها هستند که سطح بحث های سیاسی ما رو به اینجا کشاندند که می بینید. اینها هستند این فاشیست هایی که در هر انتخاباتی در احزاب مشروطه خواه و غیر مشروطه خواه انتخاب می شوند و سخنگو می شوند و دروغ میگویند به مردم و کلک میزنند به مردم، همچنان که وقتی در ایران وزیر هم بودند کلک زدند، حالا هم کمونیست زنده میکنند برای ما، فرانکنشتاین شدند برای ما. اینها هستند که وجدان خود را زیر پا گذاشتند برای اینکه بلکه باز وزیر بشوند، بلکه باز در ایران به قدرت برسند. خدایا قدرت طلبی انسان را به چه درکاتی نازل میکند و به چه درکاتی فرو میبرد. فریب میدهند مردم را و همچنان به کارشان ادامه میدهند. جبهه ملی مشروطه خواه کمونیست توده‌ای مجاهد همچنان ادامه میدهند. خدا لعنت کند این قدرت طلبان را که نخواهند گذاشت، نمیخواهند بگذارند ما به آزادی برسیم، ما به دموکراسی برسیم، ما از این فاشیسم سومکایی و توده‌ای و نمیدونم مصدقی و جبهه ملی نجات پیدا بکنیم.
ایران جاوید شاه مرگ بر سپاسه مولا چپی مجاهد مولا چپی مجاهد.
نکنید نامهایی را که برای شما میگویم. جبهه ملی مجاهد توده‌ای شریک فدایی، کمونیست های جهان وطن و بیوطن، اینها بودند عاملان بدبختی شما. هرگز نبخشیدشان، هرگز نامشان را فراموش نکنید، هرگز نگذارید که آب توبه بر سر خود بریزند یا دیگران بر سر آنها بریزند. و هرگز یادتان نرود که شما نسل‌های سوخته در کدام آتش سوختید، آتشی که جبهه ملی، حزب توده مجاهدین و خمینی و چاقوکشان با هم برافروختند تا نظام سازنده پادشاهی ما را که نشان از تاریخ ما، نشان از فرهنگ ما، نشان از افتخارات ما و نشان از 100 سال سازندگی در ایران داشت تقریبا، به ویژه در عصر پهلوی از میان ببرند. فقط برای انتقام کشید، فقط برای اینکه می‌دیدند که شاهان پهلوی ایران را دارند به جای بی بازگشت میبرند، به جایی که این مملکت از حالت عقب ماندگی بیرون میآید و دیگر ترفندهای انتقام گیران مصدقی و تروریست های کمونیست شریک و مجاهد امثالهم و اصحاب ولایت فقیه و مشروعه نخواهند توانست عقربه زبان را به عقب برگردانند. به همین دلیل شما را در مسلخ این انقلاب قربانی کردند تا مثل همین حالا هم در حکومت باشند. جبهه ملی و حزب توده هر دو در این حکومت هستند. مصدقی ها عده زیادی از این میمون ها و آخوندها مصدقی ها هستند، خودشون بارها گفتند. و بعد هم توده‌ای ها که میدانید که در همه جا در ایران هستند.
پرچم ایران نیست. پرچم ایران اینیه که شیر و خورشید هست و تاجگذار هست. So I'm going to say in English so that anybody who's going to be recording this can broadcast it. First of all, death to the Islamic Republic, long live the Iranian resistance. Selective humanity, selective news. Selective empathy, selective sympathy. If that is you who cannot sleep at night because those who illegally have entered the United States of America and have been arrested is your biggest concern on a daily basis, and yet ignore, do not comment, do not share, do not demonstrate the 40 years of rape, torture, murder of millions of Iranians. You have no sympathy for human pain. The name of human you cannot retain. To make clear, on 3rd of October 2018, exactly 1 day later, every newspaper in the Western world, every radio station, every news channel, and every politician informed us of this one person being killed in Turkey by Saudi Arabia, with no evidence from any Saudi Arabia official making such threats or giving an order for his killing. Yet, that did not deter the West from reporting the story 24/7, as we were told every life matters, and this was an aim to silence the news. And for the freedom of press, freedom of liberty and humanity, this must be condemned. And Saudi Arabia to be boycotted, sanctioned, its leaders arrested, and no trade or weapons sold to the country. Well, not bad for such concern for humanity, life and freedom and democracy. Yet, on the 16th of November 2019, 1,500 Iranians are assassinated, murdered, killed by the Islamic State in Iran, paramilitary police and the supreme leader states this, and the radio station broadcasts it. Interviews and leaders and commanders state openly they gave the order for unarmed demonstrators to be shot, and those arrested, 23,000 of them so far, to be tortured and killed. Recommendations by the Islamic so-called scholars. Yet the freedom-loving, democracy-loving, human rights-loving Western countries with their newspapers, TV news channels, and radio stations, and politicians all went blind, silent, and deaf, even though 35,000 videos were recorded and spread on the World Wide Web. 1,500 killed, nothing. Internet cut to 85 million, nothing. 23,000 arrested, nothing. 5,000 injured, nothing. 15 children shot dead, nothing. And 36 journalists killed, nothing. Only 2 leaders spoke out about the massacre in Iran. President Donald Trump USA Republican Party, and Benjamin Netanyahu, Israel Likud Party. In fact, Emmanuel Jean-Michel Frédéric Macron, the most hated person in France, with 13% approval rating, and with the yellow vest demonstrating against him for the past year, instead of supporting the people of Iran, decided to back the Islamic government and ask for closer relations and US sanctions to be lifted and ways of supporting the Islamic State financially. So today, the fake news channels who do not have the time to show any concern or report the murders in Iran informed us all that in Hawaii, one person drowned today. One Arab was hit by a plastic bullet in Gaza. 3 injured in Hong Kong demonstrations. Greta Tintin Eleonora Emanuel Thunberg would no longer be using plastic spoons from 2020. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle spotted hiking and relaxing in Canada. Princess Eugenie wore a navy coat and hat to Christmas Day services with the royal family. Princess Charlotte adorably refused to hand her flowers to a royal aide. Yep, these were the news everyone should be hearing with such importance that they got re-reported by Metro newspaper, Yahoo News, BBC, Channel 4, ITV, and etc., etc., etc. Record of last 40 years of Islamic occupation of Iran. 9.8 million escaped, political asylum seekers, refugees seeking safety. 2.1 million killed in 8-year Iran-Iraq war. 900 billion spent in weapons. 5 million homes destroyed. 1.2 million prisoners, political prisoners. 30,000 murdered in a single night in 1988. 2,162 assassinated, political assassinations inside and outside of Iran. 1 million missing. Families do not know where they are after 40 years. Remember, everyone, if you have no sympathy for human pain, the name of human you cannot retain. درود بر مردم ایران، درود بر شما که امروز جمع شدین در این روز تعطیلات کریسماس و هالیده غرب. درود بر شما که هر روز جمع شدین. درود بر امیر که این دمونستریشن رو امروز برای مردم ایران گذاشتین. درود بر تک تک شما که هر روز آمدین، هر روز بعد از 40 سال ناامید نشدین و امید روزگار روشن که پادشاهی ایران و تخت کیانی دوباره خواهد باش. جاوید شاه، الان میخوام سرود ایران رو خواهم گذاشت. لطفاً اگه همه با هم تکرار بکنیم سپاسگزار خواهم شد.
مرگ بر سه فاسد ملا چپی مجاهد. مرگ بر سه فاسد
ببینید که چه کردن.